Sup, dude? Day Cognition here. So, I'm a little something of a Persona 3 enjoyer. It very well might be my favorite thing of all time, and believe it to be a masterpiece. An experience where gameplay and story work in tandem to a degree I rarely see in other games. I made the delightful mistake of watching a Let's Play of it when I was way too young, and ever since then its story has been etched into my soul. One of the smaller aspects that made me love Persona 3 so much is simply that the protagonist, who we'll call Makoto, is always portrayed wearing his headphones. 13-year-old me, in his pseudo-emo phase, found this sickly, apathetic protagonist to be relatable, more so than any other character before. While this might seem like just a small detail, just part of the character's design, I think its inclusion does a lot of work in characterizing our protagonist and setting the game's tone. And with the release of Persona 3 Reload this year, I thought it would be a good excuse to take a look back into this aspect of the game that I don't hear talked about very often, except of course when asking where you can buy the titular headphones. To begin with, let's focus on how the beginning of the game is executed in the original and FES, since they came here first and deserve our undivided attention. When the game first starts, we are introduced to Makoto through a cutscene of him walking through Iwatoda Station on the way to the dorm, wearing his headphones and playing the game's opening song, Burn My Dread. Now, this right here is me for real. Really brings me back to the good old days of middle school, ignoring people in class, at the library, at my brother's soccer games. Anyways, what we see here doesn't look that unusual today. We see people wearing headphones or ear pods, walking around outside, at the gym, you name it. However, this game originally came out in 2006 and takes place in 2009. Headphone culture was not nearly as widespread back then as it is now. And this is illustrated by the residents of Iwatodai, who are all not wearing any headphones. The scene establishes Makoto's character, telling us that he is just a bit unusual. Most people would not walk through a city for the first time while blasting music on their iPod, and especially when, later on, the power of said city goes out, blood fills the floor, and coffins suddenly appear around you. However, notice that when the city's power goes out, so too do his headphones. The surrounding phenomena, later to be revealed as the Dark Hour, turns off all electronic devices, and these headphones are no exception. After all, we see the screen of the MP3 player go out, and Makoto pauses momentarily in recognition of this. And yet, he continues onward as if everything is normal, only giving small, indifferent glances to the coffins. So, why does he do this? Does he just not care? Should we care? Well, in a world where the whole cast has anime-colored hair, we need a way to differentiate between them and our protagonist, right? More importantly, we need to be keyed in as to why Makoto is the protagonist, the hero, we play as, not say Yukari or any other SEAS member. Actually, Ray, you might say. There is a lore explanation for this. Makoto has the unique power of the wild card. He can go into the Velvet Room and fuse personas. Of course that's why he's the protagonist. And while yes, this is true, it just does not satiate me. I have a demanding need to understand my video games through a story analytical perspective. What does this mean exactly for Makoto to have this ability but no others? What is the narrative role of the Velvet Room in Personas? Why is the protagonist portrayed as apathetic? These are all kinds of questions I wish to answer on this channel. To answer the earlier question, why does Makoto ignore the coffins, we must first look to the headphones he chooses to wear and the purpose they serve. Under normal circumstances, without coffins all around, headphones, well, play music, but there's more to it than that. First of all, headphones only play music to a single person, making it an insular experience. It narrows one's attention to focus on the music playing, thereby blocking out other distractions. Many people use it for studying, for example. This means that, most of the time, people purposefully use headphones to ignore the world around them. Simultaneously, this has the effect of signaling to other people that you shouldn't bother them, and you don't, as you assume they are busy or wouldn't hear you anyway. Both of these aspects and more are often portrayed as a trope in fiction, especially in the 2000s. From troubled teenagers ignoring their problems by blasting punk rock, to adults wearing unplugged headphones simply to be left alone. needless to say, Makoto fits the former stereotype in spades. Persona as a game series is known for its deliberate usage of tropes, brewing them together with a healthy dose of psychoanalytic theory to craft a delicious plot. The concept of a persona matches well with Makoto wearing his headphones. As Igor explains, a persona is the mask you show to the world. The mask in this case being apathy, telling that world, I don't care, don't bother me. In this case, both to the residents of Iwatoda by day and their twisted coffins by dark hour. The strangeness of Makoto's non-responsiveness to the dark hour suggests that, to him, both worlds hold a comparable unease, one by which to be medicated by the same formula. The insularity of headphones brings about another effect. By narrowing one's focus on the music playing, distractions are blocked out, but not just from the outside. The inside, one's internal thoughts, can easily be drowned out by the stream of song. Think about the times you listen to your favorite song as an escape from sadness. It's absurdly effective. An absolute banger can compel us to feel and think upon the emotion that song conveys. Music, like a drug, is an emotional regulation device, and it can hold control over us. Excessive use can prevent a person from developing themselves. Serious questions about oneself and life need to be brought up and answered. Emotions need to be processed and accepted. If all you are doing is blasting yourself with music, the emotions you are feeling are going to be blurred out by said music, and you won't be able to clearly hear yourself think. The game doesn't outright tell us if he's excessively listening to music, but we can infer that off-screen he is listening to it quite a bit. He constantly keeps them around his neck, which insinuates that he uses them, and other characters such as Kenji or Fuka make comments suggesting that you are always on those dang AirPods. And so with that, it appears to me that Makoto is using this emotional regulation device to remain detached from the outside world and his inner one, metaphorically and physically closing himself off from negative experiences. The scene of him walking through Dark Hour Iwatodai is emphasizing that he's not necessarily wearing the headphones for sick tunes. It is because he wants to block out everything. It is what he is accustomed to. And this artificial regulation has left him underdeveloped, which is the reason why the first persona he awakens, and that which represents himself, Orpheus, is labeled the Fool Arcana, that which is inexperienced. On the other hand, however, this emotional regulation is a big reason why he excels within the Dark Hour. Look to Orpheus, the persona you start out with. Orpheus' design is meant to resemble headphones. Its body is mechanical, holding a lyre to play music along with a speaker in the center. Shadows are described as manifestations of negative human emotion. Just like how in real life people use music to emotionally drown out their inner demons, Makoto's persona, manifested from his relationship with headphones, is used to physically defeat demons in the Dark Hour. The symbolism is even more striking when you consider Orpheus' background in Greek mythology. One of the legends tells of his expeditions with the Argonauts, in which he saves the party from the sirens by drowning out their singing with his own. Although, in this case, instead of singing, Orpheus is driving out the demons by bonking them with a lyre. This explains why Makoto is relatively comfortable in the Dark Hour compared to Yukari, and as such becomes the party leader of Seas. He is uniquely primed to combat the unreal elements of the Dark Hour, both thematically and practically. However, while Orpheus is strong and versatile in the early game, both he and Makoto are flawed and unable to overcome their challenges as it stands. The second Makoto arrives at the dorm and takes off these headphones, Pharos, the boy in prison clothes, calls out and appears right before him. As you learn later in the game, Pharos is the inner representation of death and a reflection of you. Once the headphones are off, Makoto is symbolically more open to interacting with his inner thoughts and world around him, or rather in this case more susceptible. Pharos is like an existential thought manifested, unpleasant yet unavoidable. You can put off thinking about it, but eventually you'll just have to. Like Pharos himself says,
"No one can escape time. It delivers us all to the same end. You can't plug your ears and cover your eyes."
Being detached means more than just ignoring the world. It also means that you are trying to avoid responsibility. Responsibility is inherently a two-way relationship in life. Working a job and paying taxes are responsibilities. We act in accordance to fulfill them, and if not, we receive a consequence. These are often choices in life made out of pragmatism. No one wants to do their taxes, but the reward of living in society is worth it, so we pay them anyway. In this case, it means that we are attached to society through that relationship. Makoto, like any troubled teen, is avoiding responsibility by severing this relationship. By being detached, he is not beholden to the consequences of his actions because they mean nothing to him. A consequence is only real if it has a negative impact after all. If you don't care about living in society, then the IRS throwing you in jail is something you can just shrug off. And so, with attachment to the world having inherent responsibilities, Pharos, the proverbial force of nature, provides a contract that must be signed, and here is where you, the player, come in. The contract itself is a simple acknowledgement statement, but it is both a clever protagonist naming gimmick and an allusion to the player's choices. Pharos directly states that the contract is about taking responsibility for your actions. And since all actions taken from now on are made by you, the player, including the name you signed in the contract, it's really a message directed to you as much as it is to him. You get to name the protagonist. He is no longer just Makoto. He is who he is through the name and actions you take throughout the game. These actions are imperative to your progression throughout the game. Igor, who is in possession of your contract, states that the strength of one's soul is relative to the depth and quantity of the bonds with others, and that this is the means of strengthening your personas. Without a strong enough persona, you will not be able to beat this game, and so your mission is to become fully developed, to gain attachment to the world through relationships with your social links, and carry the responsibility of what that entails. Now, I should note that the events of the beginning cutscene are slightly different in Persona 3 Reload, but functionally they are all the same and don't detract from my point. Instead of at the dorm, Makoto takes off his headphones upon reaching Iwatodai after first noticing the dark hour. As soon as this happens, we get to see Makoto's inner dialogue and start to control him. Both sets of events involve the player controlling Makoto after he has opened up, so to speak. So as for why they did this change, I have no idea. Perhaps they wanted to make it more clear that he is detached, but at least takes more notice of what's around him rather than oblivious to a point where he's walking around coffins like they're aisles at a convenience store. Tell me what version you prefer in the comments, I guess. So, there you have it. My analysis of the aesthetic choice behind the protagonist's headphones, which sets the stage of Persona 3. I have been Ray, and thank you for watching.